I'm terrible with money. I should know better by now. I am so tired of working and having nothing to show for it. Every time I feel like I'm getting ahead, something knocks me back. I'm never going to have the advantages that rich people do. These are the kind of things we hear all the time. Every day when we're working with clients, they come in, and these are the type of feelings and the way that people feel in this country every single day. And today we're going to talk here on Clear Path Retirement Radio podcast. I'm Stewart Smith. I'm here with Mitch Davies. Today we're going to talk about money and how people feel about money, people's relationships with money. And it's really come to my attention over the past few years, and I don't think that it's people's imaginations whatsoever, in that there's people that are participating in the markets and people who don't participate in the markets, and the gap in income and assets and all of that is just getting greater.
It's as wide of a gap as we see. And Stewart, first of all, welcome back, everybody. And I'm excited for this one. This is, there's so much fear about addressing this stuff. And if you don't understand this stuff, is how do you get into it? How do you, wherever you're at in life, or how do you talk about this stuff? It goes over a lot of people's heads, and it's scary to get into, it's scary to start. So that's what we're gonna try to do today, is just simplify this stuff. And the gap is widening. We're in a time where there's a lot of inflation. And in that same time, stocks are doing very well. We've had some of the best 5 years we've had in the last 50, right? Yeah. And if you're not participating, you're getting hurt right now because you're paying higher prices for your groceries, but your accounts are going up. So I'm excited about this one. This one really hits home for me because this has been something that we've been watching a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it all really goes back to, what did you learn about money from your parents, right? I grew up with parents who honestly struggled, lived paycheck to paycheck most of their lives, never really understanding money, how to use money, how to leverage money, and how to, grow assets, and just weren't in a position to really even to try and understand it. And, I feel very fortunate that for whatever reason, at some point in my life, I took it upon myself to learn and to start teaching myself, and to really be, voracious in my appetite to learn about money and how do I accumulate money? What does it take to get, into a position where you actually have money working for you? And I think that's the key here, is to, I heard somebody say one time, the key to financial freedom is to getting to a point where your money makes as much money as you do. Right? Yeah. And if you think about that, it's pretty easy to understand. I mean, if you make $50,000 a year and you somehow manage to save $1 million and you can get a 5% return on that, then your money's now making $50,000 a year. So now your money's making as much money as you do. And, that's a hard concept for people to understand. And people think to themselves, oh my gosh, I'll never have $1 million. And that's just not true, right? You have to be strategic, diligent, disciplined, and understand that, these things don't happen overnight. There's no get rich quick scheme out there. And there is magic out there, but you have to be smart enough to understand and educate yourself in how to find that magic. And I give an example of magic, right? So if you would have invested $10,000 10 years ago in NVIDIA, and everybody's heard that name by now. NVIDIA's been all over the news everywhere. Today, 10 years later, off of a $10,000 investment, you'd have about $1.5 million in 10 years. Don't tell me that's not magic, right? There, it exists. I mean, when I look at the top 10 earning companies over the last 10 years, the least you would have had on company number 10 on this list, and the lists vary, and we've seen that, but Enlight Renewable Energy comes in number 10 on this list. If you would have invested $10,000 10 years ago, $422,000 today. There is magic in the market, and people hate that. Yeah. People hate hearing that story, because for every one of those stories, there's 1,000 other stories of people losing everything they have. And we understand that. But the difference between those stories and this story is just education and knowledge and understanding how to, look at these companies and to look at, their balance sheets, and to look at, the management structure, and to do the research. And if you are diligent enough, and if you are really determined enough, you can find the winners. And, if you are, listen, for those people out there who are like, I'm scared of the stock market, I'm scared of doing investments, start really small here. Start with some index funds. Start with a fund that invests in 1,000 companies, so that money's spread out and diversified over 1,000 different companies. And just basically, when you do that, you're investing kind of in the market as a whole, right? And or in certain sectors, or in maybe a handful of sectors, and that way you really just kind of one of those, a rising tide raises all boats theory, and that if you just believe the markets are going to do what they've done historically for 100 and however many years, 120 years now, then you have enough faith, then all you need is $50 and a smartphone, and you can get started, right? So, Mitch, talk a little bit about this, because this is your wheelhouse. You help a lot of people get started in this. Mitch had an investment club in high school, right? Like, he's passionate about this. So I think you're a little more qualified to talk about getting people started down this road.
Definitely, Stewart. This is probably the thing I've been most passionate in my whole life. Ever since I was 18, I had every type of investment account you could opened. And this is, I've been fortunate enough to help hundreds and probably thousands of people at this point, just that I've came across. I have a page online that I, teach this stuff about. But the most important thing is just getting started. The biggest principle I understood when I was 18, 19 years old was the compounding effect, right? And to understand how money compounds, and to understand the earlier you start, there was a study that was really interesting. For any younger people, if you guys have kids or grandkids, if you invested $10,000, if you invested the same amount at 20, when you turn 20, and invested till 30, and then didn't invest again, versus if you started at 31 and invested till 65, the same amount of money, you end up with more money just doing the 10 years at 20, because of the effect of compounding. And this is so, so important to understand. It's like, I tell everybody, like, it doesn't matter how much you have. It doesn't matter what you have available. Like you said, $50 in a smartphone. Just buy general index funds. Buy any, Vanguard, all these funds that are super inexpensive will offer you overall market exposure. And the second, the second principle I really like to preach is that all-time high, the market's high right now. The market's been extremely good. And all-time highs tend to lead to more all-time highs. It's a weird psychological thing. You think when the market's doing really well, we should sell everything and sit. But if you look at the last 50 years, you're more likely after an all-time high to hit another all-time high in the next week than you are to go down. Mm-hmm. And when you do go down, you're likely to recover in the next 6 to 12 months. So, we look at these examples, Stewart, of companies that have just crushed it, right? Companies that have done, 4,000% over the last 10 years. And if you narrowed it down to 5 years, they're almost all going to be tech stocks, tech, AI, that kind of thing. And, we look at the 10-year returns on NVIDIA. If you had said, 7 years ago, if you had said, I'm too late on NVIDIA, I'm too late on the AI thing, you would have missed out on another 8,000%, right? So the main thesis here is and get into the overall market. Don't be scared when markets are high. We have 120 years of market history to tell us that, you can pick any point in the market and go out 10 years and you're never down from where you were. There's going to be bad years, there's going to be good years, but overall the market's always gone up consistently. So don't be scared when the market's high. Continue to average in. I tell everybody, just buy weekly. Just buy the same funds, just general index funds every single week. And what you're doing is what we call dollar cost averaging, where you're just consistently buying into the funds. And it doesn't matter if the market's up, down. You don't want to try to time the market. You just want to have time in the market, right? That's another huge principle. So continue to buy in consistently. Don't try to pick the NVIDIAs if you're not comfortable with that. Just buy general index funds because those have performed extremely well. And for the last 5 years, we've had multiple 20+% years in the S&P. So when things are good, they tend to keep going good. We've had, I think, almost 53 all-time highs this year, and we're in August. So that's, we're averaging 5 or 6 a month, right? That's just it continuing to all-time high, all-time high, all-time high. So don't be scared when it's high. Continue to average into stable index funds that invest in a wide variety of things and do it every single week.
Yeah. I love it, man. And for those young people out there, you've got to get off the sidelines and get involved in this. I mean, you really do, because what we're seeing is the people that have money invested in the stock market, they are getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. And the people who don't participate are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And that is not, my imagination. That we see it firsthand all the time. And so, it's more important than ever that you get involved in investing and get your money working, get it earning something. A lot of people, listen, I know your parents don't know a lot about money, and that's okay, right? Neither did my parents. It's okay, but you can teach yourself. You just have to have the want and the drive and just to go read. There's so much knowledge out there available. I mean, you've got the internet at your fingertips. I didn't have that when I was your age. You had, endless amounts of just awesome books that you can be reading out there about fundamentals of investing and teaching you what is an ETF, what is a stock, what is a mutual fund. I mean, what are these things, and how do I invest in them, and how do I go about purchasing? And nowadays with Robinhood and all of these super just at your fingertips, it's easier than ever to get involved. And, I can tell you that if you just take a look, for most of these kids nowadays, if you just take a look at how much money they spend on two things, and what are the two things I'm going to say, Mitch?
I'm going to say eating out, going to say... What else?
Amazon.
Okay. Yep.
Right?
I knew it was gonna be some kind of shopping. Yeah. Yeah.
If you just took that budget that
DoorDash.
You're spending, DoorDash.
There you
Oh
go.
my gosh, there you go.
Yeah.
DoorDash.
Yep.
If you just took those budgets and cut them in half, and instead of taking that money and blowing it on DoorDash, Amazon, and eating out in restaurants, then you started putting that money away into a Robinhood account, and I always recommend for young folks to start with a Roth IRA, right? Like, start with the Roth IRA. It's a great account to open. You're putting in after-tax money, but that money grows tax-free, and you never have to pay taxes on that money again. And I can tell you, you may not be able to get it till later, but the great thing about a Roth account is if you got in a jam in your 30s or 40s, you could always get back the contributions that you put in without any penalty. And, you just can't touch the growth. But man, when you're young and you're 20 years old and you're putting away money in a Roth and oh gosh, I mean, the compounding effect. I mean, if you make 10% a year, just think about that. You've got, you put in $100, now you got $110. Now you're getting 10% on $110. So now, it's just compounding on top of itself. And that just blows up over 20 years. And you would be amazed at how much money you can save. And that's tax-free money. I mean, that's an opportunity to put yourself into, a really, really good position by the time you're in your 40s. I mean, you can have significant assets. And, it just kills me that these kids are so afraid today of investing. And we try so hard here at ClearPath to make sure that we're sharing knowledge and that we're giving people power in money. And, money is it's a funny thing, man. I mean, you kind of either have it or you don't. And, there's a lot of people out there and there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of money, but don't know much about money.
No.
And, they're maybe really good at their job, or they're really good at, they have certain skill sets that have allowed them to accumulate a lot of money, but they don't understand money. They don't know money. So, that's what we're going to address in this podcast. What we're going to address in a lot of the podcasts coming forward is we're just going to talk about money and how do we deal with it? What's our relationship with it? When I ask somebody, what is your relationship with money? That's
a heavy question.
That's a heavy question, right? And a lot of people don't think about that. And like, what is my relationship with money, and how do I feel about money, and how do I use money? And I think in order for you to really understand that, you got to put some thought into it and really get clear on, how money impacts your life. I love a really good thought process that I like to go through with folks is to ask them, if you woke up tomorrow and you had more money than you could ever need, and you didn't have to, you no longer had to go and work and chase the mighty dollar, and you really had the freedom at that point to do anything you wanted to do, who would you be?
It's a scary question for most people.
Right?
It's really scary.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if money doesn't define you, if you don't have to get up and go to work every day just to make enough money to put food on the table and keep the lights on and, take that occasional vacation down to the beach with the family and, that kind of thing, like who would you be and what really matters to you? And I think, that's a fun thought exercise to do and to try and figure out, like, because for most people, money, that struggle for money defines them.
It does. And that's, one of my favorite things we talk about here at ClearPath. We're obviously financial advisors. We do the wealth management. We do all this stuff. But a lot of what we do is just talking through life, seriously, especially as it comes to approaching retirement. And, we often see people in their, mid 70s who just go back to work because they're like, I've worked hard my whole life. I've worked 70 hours a week to support this family and to have this house and to grow these accounts. And, they're like, I don't know what else to do. And they're like, I just got to keep working. And it's so important to think about that. The earlier you can start thinking about that, the better. It's like, if you woke up with $1 billion, it's like, what would make you happy, right? What would you do? And a lot of people are like, I don't know. I just need to work. I just need to get in there and grind. And it's like, it can be scary. So I love talking through that kind of stuff. And I think it's very important to do. If you've never had that conversation, whether it's you and your spouse or yourself, just really think about that for a few minutes and write down, we always say, write down 5 things that you do tomorrow, right? Write down 5 things that you do if you never had to think about money again. Mm-hmm. And you can start to learn things about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, would you volunteer?
Right.
What causes really mean anything to you?
Right. Would you travel?
Yeah. I mean, would you spend more time with your family? I mean, who are you?
Right.
And, that's one that, I think a lot about. And
Me too.
I think it's important to understand that, and the trap of money is awful because, what we see a lot of times is for people who don't understand money and they're just really stuck in this kind of cycle of just comparing themselves to everyone else, that saying, comparison is the death of joy. And I believe that
I do too.
deep down in my heart, that I see it so much. And for people, that look around and say, why don't I have what they have? And why don't I have that big house and the nice cars? And why can't I take the vacation? And why can't I do this and do that? You can't get caught up in that. It's just a really unhealthy cycle to be in and be looking at. You can't judge other people's happiness by, looking from the outside like that. I mean, it's, that's not even fair. No. And so I think what you have to focus in on is go inward and focus on what makes me happy and what do I need and what do I have that I mean, a lot of people just need to be really thankful and appreciative for the things they do have and not get caught up on, why don't I have what the neighbors have and looking around and comparing themselves constantly to other people and getting caught in that trap, because that is the exact trap that causes you to accumulate a lot of debt to try and be something that you're not. And, I was speaking with a client the other day, and I was so impressed with his take on money is, he said, my father taught me that you never buy anything that you can't pay for in cash. And I thought, wow, and this guy is, getting ready to retire in his late 50s and has, a beautiful home that's paid for, has vehicles that are paid for, has accumulated, a couple $1 million and is just, in a great position solely because he was taught that one fundamental thing of, look, if you can't pay for it in cash, you can't afford it. And I think that's a great rule of thumb. There's maybe two things I think of in my life that I would borrow money for. One being a home, and maybe the other being a car. Yep. And outside of that, I don't think I've ever gone into debt for anything. No. It's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's hard especially when you're like Mitch and you just became a first-time homeowner and, to come up with, $300,000-$400,000 to buy a house cash when you're in your, 20s. And I get that. And so that might make sense.
That's where it makes sense.
But outside of that, to take on debt just for temporary pleasure, right? Like I see people do constantly where they'll just put a vacation that they really can't afford on the credit card.
Just stretch it.
And then just pay extreme interest rates on that to try and, and then try and, pay that down. I mean, it's just insane what some people do. Yeah. And, I think it's really an epidemic in this country in that people will do that, but they won't take time to learn about investing and putting money into, investments. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be the stock market. I mean, buy a investment property, buy real estate, buy something of value, of significant value that is going to go up in value over time. And, there's lots of ways to do that, but for a lot of people out there, and we hear it all the time, it's like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And that mentality drives me insane because it's like, of course you can. Yeah. Of course you can. You are the only thing standing in your way. And, this is not rocket science. You can and be an investor. I don't care if you know nothing about money. Get on one of these apps, Fidelity, Schwab,
anything,
Robinhood, one of these apps, and open up a brokerage account, open up a after-tax investment account or a Roth IRA or an IRA, and start putting $25 a month. I think they're down to where you can do $25 a month. Give up one meal a
Yeah.
month to start putting that money into an investment account. And what happens over time is as you spend more time and they're looking at different investment options and you start to look at, I mean, buy, I don't care if you buy CDs. I mean, I don't care what you buy. Put it in a high yield money market, to earn some decent interest. But, I personally like investing in companies. I think companies make a lot of sense. I don't think that it's real hard to pick good companies anymore. The Apples, the Googles, or Alphabet or whatever you want to say, the Nvidias, these aren't secrets.
No.
Right?
And don't overthink these companies. Right.
You don't overthink. I mean, these companies have been making tremendous returns for decades now. I mean, it's not that hard to pick really solid companies out there to invest your money in. I mean, think of it like this. I mean, even in bad economies, we have to still pay the light bill.
Yeah.
Right? Like some of these utilities, like these energy companies, in our area, Duke Energy is here. I mean, Duke Energy is a great company, right? Like it's that's just not that. Pick things that you spend money on.
Yeah.
If you're a huge Amazon person, why not buy some Amazon?
Yeah.
If you drive a Tesla, maybe you want to put a little money in Tesla if you love your car, right? Like if you love your car, what's the chances that somebody else loves your car?
Right.
I mean, most people are, just invest in things that you love.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's a great principle.
Yeah. Things you are passionate about, things that you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to get real speculative and go into all these AI companies and do, you don't have to do that. You can just invest in real simple things. I mean, I had a client I was working with the other day and, he said, I want to put some money in Dollar General, right? And I said, well, why Dollar General? Because I hadn't looked at the chart in quite some time. And he said, because I love it. I go there all the time.
Right.
And there's one on every corner. And so I went and looked at the chart and I was blown away because I hadn't looked at it recently.
You wouldn't think of that though.
Yeah. In the last couple of years, they've killed it. I mean, killed it. So, I mean, is that a hard pick to pick a Dollar General? I mean, I think these are all companies that would just Walmart. Like if you go to Walmart and you love Walmart,
it's insane over the last 10 years.
It's
ridiculous.
It's been great.
Right.
This isn't hard stuff. You know what I mean? Just put a little money here, put a little money there, buy a share when you can. You can even buy fractional shares. You can buy a part of a share now.
Hey, Robinhood lets you put in $1 to a company.
Yeah.
Literally.
And just, get the ball rolling and start teaching yourself. And the younger, the better, like Mitch said. If you can somehow find a way when all your friends are out blowing money in the bars and doing whatever they're going to do in their 20s, if you can find a way to, divert some of that money that you would have spent there to investments from 20 to 30, you may not have to invest again for the rest of your life.
Seriously.
If you just do it right early. And I love that, man.
Yeah, that's a great one. And when it comes to, one thing I want to talk about for a minute, when it comes to opening up these accounts, the biggest misconception I hear, whether it's people in their 20s or people retirement age now, a lot of people don't understand how the accounts work. You'll hear things like, well, how much does a Roth IRA earn? How much does a brokerage account earn? So there's really 3 buckets of money. And this is one of the most important things you can understand about money. There's 3 buckets and they're all just wrappers. They're all just a place, an account, and you have to invest inside of them. So you have brokerage account, which is like after-tax money. So money you have in the bank. You've paid taxes on it. You've got it from work. You got it from wherever. It's sitting in your bank. You could go put that into a brokerage account, as we like to call it, and then buy whatever. You can buy Apple. Let's use Apple for the example for all 3. You buy a share of Apple in the brokerage account. As it grows, you pay taxes on the growth, capital gains once you sell it. So that's the first bucket. The second bucket is your 401k, your tax-deferred money, as we like to call it. This is any 401ks, IRAs, 407, 453, any of these accounts that you've never paid income tax on, that's the second bucket. Now remember, it's a wrapper. It's going to work the exact same. You have the account, but you still have to buy something in it. So you're going to buy, let's say Apple again. You buy Apple, It continues to grow, and then when you sell it, you have to pay income tax. So that's the second bucket. And the third bucket, probably the strongest bucket, and you're limited into how much you can put in this bucket, very limited, is the Roth bucket. This is tax-free. So you take money back to our bank account. We have money that we've paid taxes on. We've paid income tax already. We put it in the Roth, and it grows tax-free forever. You never have to take any distributions on it. You never have to pay capital gains on it. It's the strongest bucket. And we're limited by how much we can put in it. You can put in $7,500 a year if you're under 50. If you're over 50, you can put $8,500. So we're very limited into that. So to Stewart's point, the younger you can start that kind of account, or just at any time you can start that kind of account, as long as you have working income, put money into that Roth bucket because it's our strongest bucket and it's limited. But all three of them are just buckets. And inside of them, you have to buy something. You can't just open up a Roth. When I was 18, I opened up a Roth and I said, so what do I do now? And the guy at the bank was like, well, you got to buy a stock, right? You have to it's no different than anything else. You still have to buy something. It's just a tax classification on the account. So 3 buckets of money, buy anything. Like he said, the first stock I ever bought was Apple. I read in a book somewhere, it was like, just pick something to use every day. I had an Apple iPhone. I was like, cool, that company will probably be around. I bought it in my Roth IRA, right? I still have that share. So it's cool. And so understand the 3 different buckets. That's one of the most important things you can understand is the 3 kinds of money and that they're all just a bucket to buy things in. And that's super important.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention that there's income thresholds that, once you're over a certain income, you can't invest in a Roth anymore. So what's interesting about that is the Roth is almost, advantageous to lower income. I mean, it's really cut off for people that I think is it about 130 grand or something?
Yeah, married couple phased out in the low to mid 200s.
Okay.
Really phased out.
Yeah. So once you're making over about 130, it's in that 130 range for a single person. You can no longer contribute, or any years that you do that, you can't contribute. Yeah. And for a married couple, it's in the 200s.
Yeah, it's
in
like
that 230 range where you can't contribute in any year that you make over that. But so that's really interesting because, for lower income people, and I wouldn't say that 100 grand a year is low income, but it's really not available to the rich,
the ultra wealthy,
the ultra wealthy people who are making really high incomes. And so while you're not making those type of incomes, take advantage. Put money in a Roth. And like Mitch said, I mean, anytime you can enjoy compound growth in a tax-free environment, there's nothing better than that.
No.
If you want to accumulate assets, if you want to make money, make it in a tax-free environment. And I mean, that's like compounding on steroids, right? Because it compounds and you never have to share it with the government, right? So what a beautiful thing that is.
And there's really no other way to do that. The ultra wealthy have certain tax things that you can, there's deductions, there's things you can do. But for the regular people, there's no other way you can put $10 into something and have it grow tax-free forever. Yeah. There's literally not another type of thing you could do that with.
Yeah, which brings me to another thought is that not only should you self-educate yourself on investments, and not just like what Mitch just said, probably starting with investment vehicles and what buckets you can put money into and how they work, and understand how a Roth IRA works, understand how a traditional IRA works, understand how a brokerage or what we call an after-tax individual investment account works, but understanding taxes. Educate yourself on taxes because, we like to say that there's 2 sets of tax laws in this country, and there's one for the informed and one for the uninformed. And whenever I'm doing a financial workshop and I ask that question, who pays more taxes? The uninformed.
Every person says that, and they're all happy to answer that.
Yeah. Right? I mean, it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
And do you not think that wealthy people don't have a couple CPAs working for them that have figured out every loophole, every possible way, every tax advantage they can take advantage of, every strategy they can employ. They all understand how to make money and keep it.
Yep.
And so, you need to understand not only, again, the types of accounts that you can have, whether it's IRAs, Roth IRAs, brokerage accounts, but also, what how to invest, like what is an ETF, what is a mutual fund, what is a stock, what are structured notes. I mean, on and on, but to really educate yourself on these real fine principles, and then finally understand tax law, understand tax code, understand how this stuff is going to be taxed and how you can avoid paying more taxes than you should. And, one of the biggest things that we harp on here is the surest way to build real wealth is by not paying taxes on money you're not using. And so that is very, very key to understand. So, all of these things are, things that I wish I knew even younger than I did. And I took a very early interest in these things because I did look at my family and look at my parents and watch them struggle financially for years. And I never wanted to struggle that way. And so I really felt like this was extremely important. And I remember when I first got into financial services, my uncle, who was pretty financially savvy and was a banker for 20, 30 years, I remember one thing, that he said to me was, if you get into financial services, you'll never struggle financially. And, that was some really, really good advice, because what it forced me to do at that point was learn all the stuff that I didn't know yet. Yeah. And, I've spent the last 25 years accumulating knowledge in this area, and I can tell you that it's paid, not only it's been a rewarding career and I've loved every minute of it, but boy, I mean, I understand things now about money and how money works, and, how to pass money on and how to, build true wealth that I could have never fathomed understanding, 25 years ago. So, if you care about financial stuff, if you care about money, if you care about, being part of that, crowd that seems to always just get ahead when everybody else is standing still, learn this stuff. Yeah. Take an interest in it. Like I say, you've got all the information you need at your fingertips. I mean, you've got Grok, you've got Claude,
yeah, right.
You've got
YouTube is the biggest thing.
ChatGPT. I mean, everything you can imagine. YouTube. I mean, come to our YouTube channel. Yeah, right. Come to ClearPath Retirement.
We talk about everything on here,
and check us out, because we've got some great videos on there, especially if you're a little older and trying to get your stuff together for retirement. But yeah, I mean, this is important stuff, and nothing is going to serve you better than understanding this stuff, no matter what age you are. Right. And it's never too late to start learning about money. We have people that come to us, in their 60s, and they're just like, I just want to learn. Yeah,
and we want to get started.
And we just want to teach them. Like, we love it. We love it. That's why we do all the workshops and seminars that we do. And like I say, you want to make your life better. You want to make the life for your children better. You learn this stuff, and not only learn it, but pass that knowledge on to them. Yeah. Right. I remember my father and I having many conversations later in his life about, I was teaching him about money, and he was just blown away with the fact that I had learned so much about it and had really, understood it on a level that he never quite did. So, learn this stuff, live this stuff, eat, breathe, and sleep it like Mitch and I do, and you'll never worry about money again.
And if you, once you have a baseline understanding, what happens is you stop panicking. Mm-hmm. People always, I've been doing this for a long time, and people will what we do. And they're like, hey, they'll know nothing. Be like, what stock should I buy? And I'm always like, no, because what's going to happen is the stock's going to go down 10% the next day and you're going to panic and sell it and wonder why you lost money. But if you took the time to understand how the stock market works, the stock market history, what generally happens, how it moves overall with the market itself, how things work, how the taxes work, if you understand all that, then you don't panic and sell. And the people who understand how the market works, also, when you start learning about money, you learn about the world. I always tell everybody that. Like, I'll get somebody into, stock trading and all that stuff, and they learn about economics. You learn about how businesses work. You learn about how the government works. You learn so much about the Federal Reserve. You learn about how different countries trade currency and how they control interest rates and how the world works. Money teaches you about the world. So no matter what age you are, spend time learning about, start with this, and it'll open your eyes up to a whole world of knowledge that is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never even really thought about it in that regard, and the fact that how much it's taught me about the world in general.
Truly.
And, I think back to, my Navy time and traveling in all these other countries and seeing, being just so blown away by how different other cultures lived and how money was it's so scarce in these countries. And in a lot of these countries, you're either living in a palace or you're living in a cardboard box. There's not a lot of middle class there. There's not a lot of in the middle. And, we're very fortunate here in this country that, you can, based on your knowledge and what you want to learn, and there's endless opportunities out there to learn, you can change your situation from, having absolutely nothing to being, a multi-millionaire in a matter of 10 years if you really, really put your mind to it. And it's just the opportunity is there, and that opportunity doesn't exist in other parts of the world. But yeah, understanding, how governments work, how politics fits into it. I mean,
huge part.
It really does.
Yeah, it does.
It from everything from the Federal Reserve to just, geopolitical environments that impact the markets. And it's awesome. It's awesome because, it's forced us to always be aware and not necessarily having to understand every detail of everything, but to understand how it impacts markets.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I've learned a lot about that over the years. But just to reiterate here, if you've had those feelings like, man, I'm just always broke, and I'm tired of struggling. I'm tired of just living paycheck to paycheck and wondering, when the ball's going to drop. And, I just, you can do it. You can make a difference. You can get out of this rut. And that first step is knowledge. And there's nothing, everybody in this country has a smartphone. I mean, there's nothing holding you back from learning. Learning is free. And you can go on and you can teach yourself, and start really small, like we say. Start with $50 a month. You can find it. You can find it somewhere. Yeah. Get you a side hustle. If you really want it, you'll do that. Like, we know a lot of people who work full-time jobs to just make ends meet, and then they go out on the weekends and they have a side hustle. Yeah. They go, it could be a million things.
Yeah, there's so many people. Yeah, so many things to do now.
And let your side hustle money be the money that you invest, and just do that for a few years. Just long enough to get a foothold into, having some real investment money, 20 grand, whatever it is, set a goal and get yourself into participating in the stock market, and watch as you see, you'll grow as a person, you'll grow financially, you will learn a lot through that experience. And you can start to see yourself get ahead. And man,
That's awesome, man.
when you see that and you see like, wow, I'm making a difference. I'm getting ahead, and I'm not just paycheck to paycheck. And look, now I have an emergency fund, and whoa, I'm not nearly as stressed as I used to be. That's a great feeling. And, unfortunately, most people in this country don't have that. They couldn't come up with $1,000,
whatever it is. Yeah.
And, you can, if you really want it, you can start tomorrow, and you can make yourself not one of those people, and you can start to really see, yourself get ahead and separate from the pack, and really start to accumulate some real money. And, I don't believe it's without participating in markets, it's really tough. There's just not other ways to really get that magic.
No.
And that magic, believe it or not, still there. It's been there. It's always going to be there. You just have to be willing and want it bad enough to learn, and to really do some research, and really follow these companies, and try and make some really smart moves. And I know there's a lot of people out there that would be willing to help you. Another saying I love is a favorable wind never blows for a ship with no direction. And so,
That's a good one.
If you see that, if people see you trying to do something and they know that you have a goal, they can help you. If they don't know what you're trying to do, they don't know where you're headed, and you don't know where you're headed, nobody can help you. So get real clear on that and say, no, I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of feeling like I'm getting left behind. I want to participate, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, even if it's getting that second job for a couple years. I mean, it's tough. I know, I've been there, and it's tough, but you can do it, and it will make a difference. And you just have to learn and teach yourself how to invest. And we've talked about a lot of really good first steps here today. We're going to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
And we hope you guys keep coming back every week, and we'll have these discussions and try and help you get to that next level, and help you to understand money in ways that you never have before. But yeah, it's a big deal, and we love talking about it. We're passionate about it.
This is what we do. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a good week, and I would just say, keep your hopes up and your heads down, and let's press forward. And for all of you guys who we work with, and keep enjoying that happy retirement. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next.